Hi everybody, it's Guy here from Bluehub, and today I'm going to give you an overview of DIA systems. So if you're a wholesaler, e-commerce company, manufacturer, retailer, and you're anywhere between a few $100,000 turnover to mid-8 figures, DIA systems could likely be a great fit for your business. So what I want to do today is just give you a general overview. It's not training, we'll have much more detailed videos on this channel, so make sure you subscribe. But also we just want to give you a bit of an overview today of what DIA does and what are some of the key features. Okay, so before I dive into the system, I just want to quickly show you the website, obviously full of their marketing materials. But what you can see, if we hover over here and I move my big old head over that way, then we can see some of the key features that you use in the system. So everything really is done through DIA. So you might have it integrated with something like Xero or QuickBooks Online, and it may be integrated with all of your sales channels, be it Amazon, eBay, Shopify. But DIA is where nearly everyone in your business will spend the majority of their time. So we do everything in here, from purchasing through to sales management, through to managing the stock and product catalogue, all the way through to reports. When it comes to manufacturers, or even people that have basic assembly and kitting, then DIA has different levels of functionality for you to be able to manage that in the most streamlined way possible for your business. So what we're going to do now is dive into DIA. So here we have DIA, and straight away it takes me to the dashboard, which is essentially the first level of reports, which we'll look at in just a moment. What you can see along the left-hand side here, which is the navigation bar, are the other sections of the system. Some of them I've already covered, like purchasing, sales. Production I touched on lightly, but we'll look at a little bit more as we go through this. But for any manufacturers, there are some really strong features in there. Everything from obviously managing the bill of materials, managing resources, even capacity planning and scheduling is all covered within the system. Inventory is where we manage both our stock levels, but it's also where we manage our product catalogue too, so we're going to have a good look at that in just a moment. And while DIA primarily works, at least for all of our clients, alongside Xero and anyone who's in the US, even the UK too, likely QuickBooks Online, DIA actually has built within it its own set of ledgers, and it can actually be a standalone system. However, the majority of my clients just really don't use it in that way. So the integrations with Xero and QuickBooks are really, really powerful. I'll talk to you a bit more about them as we go through the session today. And there's also a CRM, one of the newer features in DIA, not just where we manage our contact library, but it's actually where we can manage opportunities and track our sales as well. The report section is essentially building on this dashboard, and that's where we can get the real detail. And as with any integrated cloud-based inventory app, the two main benefits they provide businesses is, one, better information and data, and then also more efficient, streamlined, automated processes, right? And a lot of that comes from integration, but a lot of it comes from the features within the system itself. So on this dashboard then, which gives us the first level of reporting, a few key things to know is, one, each user can actually decide which of the modules they want to show, so they can customize it to them. And also their user permissions will impact what data they see. We can also select the date range that we want to report on. So in this case, I'm looking at the last quarter. Equally, I can look at the last financial year or this year, all the way down to what happened today or what happened yesterday. What that does then is change the data that we're seeing in the report. So my KPIs will then change around, and then also the boards will update depending on the status of these orders. So what we have here is a nice simple graphical KPI board. These are all fixed KPIs, so you don't customize them, they're just what's included. But it's one of the few areas where you get a nice graphical readout, so that's quite nice. But then you can view more detail by diving into the reports, which we'll look at towards the end of this. We also have a series of modules, all designed to serve a different function. So here I have a purchase tab where I can see my purchase orders with our suppliers that are at different stages. I also have a similar tab here, but for our customer orders and sales orders. So what this allows me to do then is navigate between the different status of these orders. So anything from a draft quote awaiting approval, all the way from orders that are now out and pending, through to overdue invoices that the client's now past the payment date for, all the way down to those that are ready to ship. What's nice with all of this is you can see here these underlined sales order and purchase order reference numbers. I can simply click this and it will take me into the transaction that it has listed there. So now this is loading up one of Dia's advanced orders. I'll talk to you a bit more about that in a moment, but it's nice to see how it's not just static data on the dashboard, it actually allows us to navigate through to the order and transactions. A few more just worth highlighting, a nice customer overview tab here, so you can see who your top performing customers during that period of time that we selected, and who buys from you but hasn't bought from you during that period, and even things like who bought a certain product. Down here we have another one that's quite product focused and sales focused. So here I can see my top selling products during the last quarter of last year, which is what I set the date range as, and also worst selling products too. We then have the reminders module that I'll come to throughout this. And this is one of the additional features in Dia. It's called the automation module. And it does a lot of things broadly in the system. Primarily, it allows us to set up little logical rules that then force an action in the system, hence automation. So what we've done here with these reminders is set a rule that if we have a purchase invoice over X amount of money, that then needs to be approved by specific users. And you can actually layer these approval permissions. So for instance, if a purchase invoice is under £1,000, that can be approved by any user. If it's over £1,000 but under £10,000, that can be approved by user B. And if it's over that amount, that needs to be approved by user A. Okay. And you can get really creative. It even allows you to set tasks and do all sorts of cool stuff with that automation module. Even email out reports, which I'll come to later. Down here then we have a nice reorder board. So obviously at its core, Dia is an inventory management system, right? So managing stock levels, managing things like minimum levels, reorder points, even maximum quantities is all part of the core functionality of Dia. And anything I'm seeing in this module of the dashboard means that it's hit one of our statuses for reorder. Either it's fallen below a minimum threshold, or in the case of these negative numbers that you're seeing here, this is where we actually have a demand for it. So this could be a back order demand for our retailers and wholesalers, or it can even be a production demand for any of the manufacturers out there. This then integrates with part of the system for purchasing. So over here I can see my reorder tab, and then what this allows me to do is group it by supplier. So I can select a supplier down here like Bayside Club, and then I can see all of the products now that we need to reorder. From that I can see the current availability, what if anything is already on order for this product and coming into the warehouse, and then I can see our minimum levels and our reorder quantities. Once I'm ready then I can actually select which of these items I want to order. If I don't want to order them all, I simply select them and then I click reorder, and the system will now draft up a purchase order for me. What's nice about this though is I can continue to edit it. So if I now want to amend any part of this order, I can. The system's just merely created a draft for me. So I can now come in here and change the quantity if I want to make it 3,000. I can go into here and check that it's been shipped to the areas we want it to. So these are all the suppliers' details that will be included on the purchase order. But it also has things like our payment terms with that supplier. We can send them a required buy date for this order, and we can select which of our stock locations or warehouses we want them to deliver the goods to. Okay. So I'm going to get them to send it to our main warehouse. Another nice feature when it comes to purchasing is you can then verify the order. What this will do then is highlight if the supplier has any minimum order quantities, for instance, or it will check that we're hitting the right reorder quantity. But we can see on this bottom line, we actually have a highlight in orange here. And when I click this, it lets me know that the total quantity may exceed the maximum stock level I want to hold. So it's giving me advice that I might be over allocating capital to this. We might have some slow inventory, so I might want to reduce that. I can also then see things for how many cases or pallets this may be of that product. So that's what in and out cartons mean. It allows us to see the product as, say, an individual item by the case and by the pallet, or within the one line. So It's quite a nice little feature. So what I can do now is start to reduce this down so we're not exceeding our maximum quantity. And then we can always check verify again. And now there we go. You can see I'm under that. So what we then do is work through this process. Now, each user or each business that I work with has slightly different ways of managing their order process for both purchase and sale. And what the system allows us to do is change this order of events. So you can see I have it defaulted to do stock first. That may be the case you want to do the invoice first. But what this also allows us to do is enable things like goods received, not invoiced, goods invoiced, not received, journals over to the accounting system. So we can have quite a complex feed to accounts, which I'll touch on more as we go through this process. So once I authorize an order, this will now check it against that approval workflow that I just spoke about. And in this case, I am an approver, so I'm going to approve the order. Now we've done that, I can actually send it to the supplier from within the system. So like a lot of older systems, I can of course export this and send it manually, or I can use the email function and go in here. Then opens up this little box where it pulls in all of the templated information. So this is really cool. So it'll then say, "Dear Bob, please find attached purchase order 910. And all of this is automatically completed for you. You can pull through your logo and then likewise for the document templates. Now this is true of every single stage of the order processes in DIA. So you can select which documents you want to have relevant at certain parts of the process. They'll automatically then fill in with the naming of the products, the people, and anything else related to that order. Another nice feature about the emails is you can set up like an auto BCC address. If you want it to feed into your main email account, then you can have a full record of that stored over to there. Then we simply just work our way through this process. Now there's a few different ways that you can receive stock into the system. We looked at the potential of using the warehouse management app, and that's a part where this could come in. And also you can do it manually, as I'm about to now. Most of our clients don't. They'll either work in bulk or they will use the warehouse management app that DIA provides. In this case, I'm just going to copy it from the order, and now I can start to fill in any batch information. If it was relevant to cereal, we'll come to that in a moment. And what I can do now is receive that in. Before I do that though, we can see it's all been sent to the warehouse, fantastic, but I might want to put this in a certain bin location within the warehouse, and that's what I can do now. So I can go into here and I can select a bin or a zone, whatever terminology you may use in your business, and then I can put it in that relevant location so that when the people are going to pick it, they can see exactly where in the warehouse it is. What we're able to do here finally as well is print out things like a receiving note, and importantly things like product labels. Product labels can feature barcodes, they can feature images of the product, and they can even feature barcodes for batch numbers and serial numbers as well. What we're going to do then is authorize that. That will then show us stock that we have on hand and in the system. Whereas on that previous page, we saw we had some stock on order. That was the previous status. Now that's on hand and available, assuming it's not pre-allocated to any back orders or any productions that may need it. Then finally, we receive the invoice from that supplier. Again, as I pointed out before, this can happen in a different order. And simply I'm just going to copy it over. Now, there's some really advanced features when it comes to managing landed costs in the system, and that's something that we'll touch on in some other videos. But what this allows you to do is add any costs for the delivery from this particular supplier, but we can also factor in third-party landed costs, different currencies, and all of that factors into how we manage the value of the stock and manage any additional costs. So once I'm happy with that, I can verify the invoice. Part of that is, again, checking these landed costs. Again, we'll touch on that in a different video because it's quite a deep subject. And now I can authorize this invoice. Once authorized, if I'm then using something like Xero or QuickBooks Online, that's going to send over a copy, or at least queue up a copy of that invoice to send across. A really nice feature of Deer is this, logs and attributes. Every page that I'm going to show you today will have a logs page. That then allows you to see things that a user has done in the system, so we can see the processing of the order that we all just did. But it also allows me to see what's been sent over to the accounting system. And what you can see here is I've purchased some inventory, and that's going into my component stock on hand. So this for me is one of the best features of Deer from an accounting perspective. It uses a perpetual inventory model. So every time I purchase some items, that will go in as a current asset. As soon as we sell those, a journal is sent across to move it into cost of goods sold. So that means if you're using Xero, your balance sheet is up to date with your current stock position in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, in the middle of the month. You don't have to wait till you've done your final stock take. So it gives you really powerful financial reports, as well as it being a nice system for your warehouse team to manage goods in. It also enables better movement reports. So we've got some stock in the system. What I want to go and look at now, before we process the sale, is how those items are actually made up in the system. So what we're going to do now is head over to our inventory tab. So here we are in the product database of Deer, and I can search now for every single product. So if you're a manufacturer, this is where you're going to have your finished products, and also where you're going to have any sub-assemblies or component parts as well. For any wholesalers, this way you can actually import via a spreadsheet things like your supplier catalogues, so that you've got all the products that you want to sell. So that's what we've got here, imports and exports. A really key feature of Deer is that pretty much any data set, products, contacts, sales orders, purchase orders, any of the reports can instantly be exported. You don't have to request Deer provide you an export of your data. You don't have to go for any kind of technical steps to get it. You just simply go over here and click export, and then you select what data you want to export, and then it'll start to download a full inventory list. Now this is a demo account that we use at Bluehub, so we have lots of data in here, and you just saw how quickly that downloaded. So your data is your data, and it's easy to access within the system. So what we can do here is take a look at one of these products. So let's just go onto a random page and just look at this section of panel. So each one of these tabs is associated with a singular product, right? So there's lots of data we can store, and most of the bulk work you do by those imports and exports. However, it's useful to look at it on this page because you can see the key fields. So what we're able to do is manage common things like the product code and the product name. We can also manage things like warehouse default locations. So we looked at those bins a moment ago. We can put this into specific locations as a default. We also then have the minimum and maximum reorder levels that we just looked at. Beyond that, we have a few key features around the accounting side of things. So I can manage how I want to do my costing. There are three different ways primarily that we can do this. One is using a first in, first out method. And there's variations of that if you do manage any serial number or batch traceability, another key feature of Deer. We also have a first to expire, first out for anybody that has expiry dates on their products. And finally, we have special batch and special serial number. The difference here is that if we're using first in, first out serial and batch, or first to expire serial or batch, the system dictates to the warehouse team which item they must pick, okay? Because it's going to tell them to pick the first of those classifications straight away. What special allows them to do is actually override the suggestion, okay? So say if we're selling food goods and the customer has requested a certain amount of shelf life on those products, and we want to override what the system suggests we pick, then that's where we would use a special batch or a special serial number version of it. Beyond that, we also have these fields here, which allow us to send it to different parts of the ledgers in the accounting system. So for manufacturers, we can manage component stock and finished items to different asset accounts. That's what you'd be seeing here. If I don't have anything listed, then it's going to use the default features that you set up, or the default mappings would be a better way of saying it, to the accounting system. So there's a whole lot of data you can store here. I just want to touch on some of the key features. So pricing. This is key for any client that's using this, especially if there's a B2B element of your business. So there are 3 levels of managing sales, prices, and DIA. The first level is a price tier. You then assign a customer to a price tier, so they're a trade tier, and then they'll pay this row on every item. The next level then that you can use to override it is customer specific pricing. So they may pay the trade price and everything else, but then say Bluehub have a special rate on this product and they spend £2 rather than whatever their agreed rate is on all the other products. The third level then is discounts. So this is where we can do cool things like quantity breaks, also date specific pricing as well. And the reason why we say they're levels is each one overrides the next, okay? So we're on a price tier first. If there's then a custom price, it will get overridden, and or if there's a discount, that will override the tier or the custom price. So it allows you to have lots of levels and layers to your pricing. And we've covered almost every single scenario, I think, but one, which was a very complex commodity seller, manage their pricing. So that's a really key feature, and it's really nice to use. Quickly going back to price tiers, there's a few nice little modules on here. So I can define a trade price. This often say like a list price scenario. Then what I can do is do a calculated price. This can either be a markup from a cost. So for that, I can use the average cost or the fixed price from the supplier, and I can say I'm going to do a 20% markup on that fixed price. Pretty cool. You can also do an append. So this is where we're going to take a price tier. So I can also use a cost, but I can use a price tier value, and then I'm going to append it down from there. Okay. So pricing, really flexible and really simple to use in DIA, and pretty much everything but the discounts module can be done through import and export. So other nice features in the system, we can obviously set up our supplier rules. So I can set up who my preferred supplier is. I can have alternative suppliers too. We can manage those suppliers in multiple currencies, and all of that can be brought back down to a base currency for reporting purposes. Also, if you have a multi-currency Xero plugged in, then it will send over the invoice in that local currency for that supplier. Within this too, once I add a supplier, what you'll see is I can set up more layered minimum and maximum levels. So on the previous page we looked at, I could set up a company-wide minimum level and reorder point. What this then allowed me to do is set up those for each individual location. And again, you can set up alternative suppliers. Okay, final thing, and then we're going to move on to bill of materials quickly. So we have features like alternative products. So if this product's out of stock and you might want to suggest another one, then you can highlight that to the salespeople. Down here we have our sales channels. So these are all the different sales channels we have plugged in today. Some of them are till systems, others are websites through Shopify. And you can see whether or not this item is listed on that website. In this case, this one is. And you can also select which location stock is being pulled from. So this is huge. If you have a retail location and you sometimes sell stock from that on an online website, but primarily you pull it from the warehouse, this is where we can set up layered rules. So first, we're going to try and pull from the factory. Then if there isn't any stock available there, we'll pull from the auction house. So in that scenario, we're going to try and pull the stock from the warehouse, but if not, we're going to go and look at the stores, see if they have stock to pull. If so, then as soon as that order comes from the website or from Amazon, it's going to reserve that stock within the retail location. Okay. And final thing, we touched on this briefly on the purchase order side, but we can manage different units of measure. So the item is an individual, or as a case, or as a pallet, or you might sell it as singles, doubles, triples, you know. So this is what you're seeing. Is that I've lost my view? Oh yeah, dimensions here again. So you can set your carton size and your outer carton size. So again, most common use case is pallets, and then you can see what it is. You can then see the volume of this too, and all of that can integrate with shipping outs, factor into landed costs, lots of good stuff there. Right. So for anyone that's doing any kitting or manufacturing in full, there are two different levels to how you manage bills and materials in DIA, and this is great. So what I have here is called an assembly BOM. This is ideal for anyone that's doing kitting, or you sell, say you're a fashion retailer and you're selling outfits made up of separate components. Then this is where you set up a real simple bill of materials for what's required to make that kit or that outfit. Within here you can say what quantity of these items is required. You can select any wastage, and it also works in reverse. So if you buy it in a bulk lot and then you break it down into individual components, that's where you have a disassembly, and you can even factor in a cost if there's some element of wastage there. So that's the simple way. That's an assembly BOM, mainly used for kitting. What we also have then is the ability to flip this to a production BOM and a made-to-order BOM. Both of these are essentially the same, and we'll cover this in much more detail in another video. But where a production BOM differs is, as well as it being concerned with what components we need to make the finished item, we can also factor in what stages of production and also things like resources. So within here now I can have an operation. This is step one of several steps. It's a manufacturing task. We're going to call this fabrication, and we're going to say that this is usually a 1 hour and 20-minute job to produce one item. We then have a series of different machines or facilities within the system. Again, we'll cover this in much more detail in another one, but just to give you a taste, we then have the ability to add in not just components, which is what we saw previously, but also we can now start factoring other things like resources. So these might be tools, they might be big machines, they can even be people. So I might say that we need John to do this job. I can then add additional steps to this production. So this might be assembly, and this might take 20 minutes. Again, all of this you would set up in bulk, right? But it gives you a good view of the complexity that we build in. So that goes over to machine room 2. You can also manage anything that you outsource as well, and this can even automate the purchases you need to make for those services or those products that people might do. So say you fabricate an item and then you send it out to be powder coated, for instance, then you can set up the co-manufacturing process as well. So that's actually what we have over here. So a co-manufacturing process will then give us lots of different scenarios, how we manage outsourcing. Again, we will cover that in another video on this channel, so make sure you subscribe, and then you can see all the other content we're making around DIA and some of the other systems that we use. Okay, so that's it as far as I like touch on production, but it's a really, really powerful system. I'll show you a bit more of the outcome of it, but we'll leave the BOM for now. Okay, so what we're going to do now is hop over to our customer data as well. So similar to products, we get to store a lot of information about customers and about suppliers. I'm going to focus primarily on customers, but the screens are essentially the same. So what I can do here is search. So we need Bluehub again as the example. And from here I can see things like the balance due. And again, if you've got this integrated with something like Xero or QuickBooks Online, then what you're able to do is have this pull over balance due. So if they've paid off their statement, the accounts team's dealt with it, that then gets updated here. So let's look at some of the other information that we store against a customer. So within here, we have obviously quite standard stuff, the name, the currency they use, what their payment terms are with us. Just like with the product database, we can now allocate them to certain account codes within the system. We can apply discounts and also what price tier they're on. You then have the ability to store multiple addresses. So this is a nice feature. If you have one parent company you bill, but multiple sites that you deliver to, it allows you to centralize that as with the contacts at those locations. You also have the ability, and this is great if you work with different sizes of companies where they may have certain requirements that they need for their documents. Equally, if you're sending stuff overseas, especially if you're in the UK as we are, and you're sending stuff over to Europe, you're going to need different delivery documents if it's just a domestic delivery. And what this screen allows you to do is default what document templates are sent to certain customers. So for instance here, this customer is on pro forma. So at the sales order stage, it generates a pro forma document, say rather than an invoice or an order acknowledgement. Over here, they've got a certain type of invoice template that they want us to use. So we've pulled that over too. Quite cool. These next two are really useful from an account management perspective, especially this tab here. This shows you a full history then of this customer's orders. And if they call up and ask, what's the status of my order 1110, we can simply type that in. This can be your sales order reference or even their reference on their PO, which is nice. And then you can see quite simply, this order's on back order. We're waiting for the stock to land in the warehouse. Once again, this is a link, just like the dashboard that we were on before, where I can click this and it will pull up the sales order in a different tab. So, product prices, we saw on the previous page there which tier this customer was on. Now I can see all of their custom prices that we have in the system, and also any attachments that may build up over time. If you're delivering to their site personally and there's certain health and safety information needed, you can have that here. If there's any contract you guys have agreed to, you can store them in here too. Okay. What's also nice about this is you can set tasks. So I talked about the reminder module before, setting tasks automatically for me. That also appears in this little bell icon. So I can see here any reminders. So these are usually system generated. So these are those approval processes we looked at. But equally I have tasks as well. So this could be set by me. I can manage my own personal to-do list in here. But also one of my colleagues can send me a task. So against this customer here, we can see we've got 3 outstanding tasks. They're highlighted in red because all of these are overdue. So these need to be completed by the individuals or they can be cleared off. We have a workflow, which again is part of that automation module that the reminders are a part of. And this again allows you to set different rules to set different tasks against people. There's also a calendar view. Some people really like this. So over here then, those tasks and any other key bits of information can be displayed in a calendar. You can view it monthly, you can view it weekly or each day. Cool. So we looked at purchasing, we looked at products, we looked at customers. So now we're going to process sale and then we're going to round off by looking at some of the reports. So I can go to the sales section here and generate a new sale, or I can just dive in straight away from here and create a sale. So for those keen-eyed among you, you may have seen the terms simple and advanced. So this is something unique to Deer. Anything that's you may know as a call-off order, or really any order that's going to result in multiple deliveries and or multiple invoices would become an advanced order. Anything that's straight in and out, a lot of our e-commerce people, right, you're going to be dealing with this, is going to be a simple order. And a lot of wholesalers, the majority of your orders are probably going to be simple. But for those more complex staged call-off orders, then you're going to use something like an advanced order. But for today's session, this simple overview, we're just going to look at the simple order. So because I've generated this sale from within the CRM, it's already pulled through all of the key customer information, their billing address, their shipping address, what tier they're on, who their sales rep is, me, and also their payment terms. So what we're able to do now is start entering this order. What's cool about this is you're actually able to see what stock levels you have, what's available and what's on hand. So this bag of roasted coffee that has fresh black currants in it, something nice. We can see actually we only have 2 on hand, but we have over 9,000 available. And that's because this will have a bill of materials in the background that we can auto assemble into different units. Heading through here then, we're just going to grab this card. I can see I have 3 in stock. I'm just going to make this order for 1. You can see this has an image against it, which is really cool. This is visible obviously to the user right now, but it can even pull through to the documents too. When I hover over this as well, this gives me lots more information about this product. So I can see, some of the classifications like the category, what unit and measure it is. But over on the right-hand side, I can see my availability, both in the location that we've selected for this order, but also in any of our other locations that we have in the system, and also when it's due to arrive next. So I can add multiple items to this. For any fashion sellers or anyone that sells lots of variants of products, so the same products in different colours, then there's a feature called product families. We'll do a video on this as well. But it's really, really cool. So what I can do then is select, let's say we'll pick a fashion item because they're quite fun. Which we go with it. Flamingo. One with a few more variants here, guy. Let's have a look. T-shirt, lovely. Okay. So what this then does is it puts all of those variants into a grid. So now what I can do is say how many white T-shirts, how many black T-shirts, how many small, medium, and large this customer is ordering. So I can really quickly just type that in, include different quantity amounts, and now I can add that product. And you can see it's broken it down into all those different lines for me. For my T-shirt. If there was a price contained within the section that we saw before on the product page, then all of that would pull through. In this case, we have no stored trade price, because that's the price that it's pulling from for this product. So this is like a retail-only item. So I'm just going to quickly go through here and just fabricate a unit price. Again, different user permissions can restrict certain things like that. You can also restrict whether you show margin or not. Over here as well, you can pull over shipping rules. We'll do a whole video on that. But by things like ShipStation, ShipTheory, and Starship It, you can integrate those with all of your different carriers. We integrate deal with that, and then we can set rules. So if it's over a certain size or weight, then use provider A. If it's under that, use provider B. If it's hazardous, use provider C. And all of that then can help improve efficiencies around printing labels, deciding which provider you should use, helps automate all of that. Really cool feature. Once happy, then I can authorize this order. I can decide at that stage, do I want to reserve some of this stock? Do I want to allocate it or not? And in this case, it's telling me I'm out of stock of all of the T-shirts. So what I can do now is decide to back order this. This will then show in that reorder section that we looked at before. So we'll go through and do that in a moment. Once again, just like with the purchases, right, I can change the order of events. So if you're thinking, well, I don't invoice next, don't worry. You can then take that and move it after your delivery or wherever makes sense for you. It's either before pick, pack, ship or after pick, pack, ship. Okay. So I'm happy with this invoice. I'm going to authorize this because I've got the permissions to. And now what I can do is email this out to the supplier. So we saw before BlueHub have a special invoice template that we need to send them. So again, all of that can be automated. All right. So now we need to pick, pack, and ship it. But I don't have all the goods here. So what we need to do is go back over to our purchase section and replenish this order. So heading over here now, rather than going to the reorder section, which I went to last time, I'm going to specifically look at reorder and back-ordered items. Now on that previous page, I was able to select who the supplier was. But now I can also filter on who's the customer. So in this case, it's BlueHub. So I can now see what suppliers do we need to purchase stock for BlueHub. And in this case, Bayside is one of them. And then here we go, we can see some of it. So obviously we haven't got a supply set up for that other one. So here we go, we can see some of the T-shirts we need to pull in stock. And once again, now I can use this to draft up a purchase order as we did before. Okay. So some of this is actually made assembly. So this is quite cool. So if you are a manufacturer or you're doing any kind of kitting, what this has done is not just drafted up any purchases I need to make, but it's also drafted up some internal tasks for us to do some assemblies and do some production. So I said the next thing I was going to do is look at reports, but I'd be cheating you if we didn't take a quick look at how production works. So I'm not going to dive into managing a production order. Again, we'll cover that in much more detail. But for our manufacturers there, I just want to show you a few of the really cool features that Deer's now got running. So within this, I can go and look at all of my production orders. So this gives me a list view of all of my jobs. I can see the status of that job. I can also see where in our company it is, what the due dates are. So this kind of list view is quite useful. I can use this to plan and schedule. The system will actually help recommend when I can make this. So this is really cool. So if I just quickly dive into this, what you'll see in a moment is there is a planning function. So over here. So one, the system will help me calculate how many of this item I can make based on our component stock. So tell me I'm trying to make 10. I can make up to 100 with the amount of component stock we have available. And then this part's already been done, but it can calculate the date. So it can even take it from the required by date backwards. So we require it by the end of the month. When must we start production in order for us to fulfill that? That's using things like stock availability, resource availability, works center availability, even things like lead times to calculate that number. But also I can do it the other way. So if I plan to start it now, when can I realistically get it out of the door? And then it will calculate that. So really useful for you to help be able to set clear expectations with your clients, okay, or with your team so they know what they need to produce. Okay, but we'll take a deeper dive on this another time, but what I want to quickly show you is these two features. One, capacity planner, and two, scheduler. So we mentioned our work centers, our resources, our facilities, so then we can use our capacity planner to take a look at that information. So what I can do then is I'm looking over the next week here, and I can see what capacity we have or haven't got. So I'm actually going to extend this because it's a demo account, so it would make a bit more sense for us to expand this range, see if we can capture some data. Let's go back a little bit. Here we go. So here are different resources that are going to be utilized during that period. I can see what their available capacity is, what of it's been allocated, and what's already been consumed. What's cool with this is just like some of the other features we looked at where it's clickable information, you can take a deeper dive. That's what happens here. So I can actually see where is that allocated, which job consumed it. Next then we have the Gantt chart view. So we're able to go into the scheduler here. And this allows me to view either at a resource level or at a production level. So this is quite cool here. I can see my manufacturing order. I can see what stage it's in. I can see if there's any dependencies. So it's letting me know I'm behind schedule because this was back in April. And what's nice is, assuming I've got the right permissions, I can edit this then. So you can even use drag and drop to reschedule. But a really nice page, really nice features. You can also view if you do any made to order. We can see the status of a sale, which manufacturing order is allocated to that, and then again we can see all kinds of statuses. So again, I'm behind schedule. The reason for that is there's a lack of components for production run 1. So it gives you a lot of information for you to be able to go and adjust plans or adjust purchases. Okay. One more page I'd be absolutely foolish not to show you is the stock control, right? It's an inventory system at the end of the day, guys, so this would be quite useful. So, as I was mentioned just on that previous page of capacity, where we can get a view of where the stock is being used, that's similar over here. So I can see now what stock has been allocated of that, and I can see it's all going out on this one sales order. Heading back over to that product availability screen then, I get a more full view of what stock's on hand, what of that is available. So here we have a back order. We can see where that's allocated to. We can see currently we haven't started to replenish that. So there's nothing on order with the supplier and nothing in transit. So we've got a bit of a gap there. And down here you can also see when we look at what's on order, I can then see in this case this is an assembled item. So it's on order with us to go and produce it, to bring it into stock. Equally, this could be with your supplier, so you could have a purchase order associated with it. Cool. Finally, reports. There'll be a whole video on the reports, but I just want to give you a feel for how they work. So if we go sales by product details, probably one of the most popular reports in the system, you can then see how this functions. So similar to the dashboard, I select my date range. In this case, I'm looking at December of last year and a little bit into January too. So this is going to be the status of month, what product we sold, and what quantity we sold, how much money we made, etc. All of this is drag and drop. So if I'm not really too worried about what month it falls in, but instead I want to see which customers bought certain items, then I can pull that through and drag it. So I can see everything that Bluehub ordered during that time frame, and then we can see again what money we made. But what's really cool, if I just clear this off, is it has all the regular sort and filters that you'll see in Excel. You can also export this to Excel with the click of a button. I mentioned before the reminders module, you can actually pick your favorite reports and have those emailed out to you on a regular schedule. You can make your own versions of these reports and save them. So I've got sales by sales agent here, which is a different version of the same report. And then you have these custom filters. So this allows you to do logical statements. This is quite cool. So if the profit is less than £11 and the customer is Ben Wilson, then show me those results. So this is a really specific view that we're trying to get. Instead, I can maybe generalize this a bit more by saying, okay, so if the brand of product equals some kind of specific brand within there, and then show those results. So if the brand equals, then we can select the brand Aspire, and the month equals December, then show those results. And there we go. We can see the two products that we sold that were from that brand. So really, really useful little feature. You can do if, this, and you can get quite creative with the logical statements that you're using, but it really help you navigate through your reports. So that was a quick overview. It's a massive system. There's so much information in it, and that's what we're going to cover on our channel over the coming weeks and coming months. So make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you give this video a like if it was useful, and let us know in the comment section other things that you would like us to cover. What are some of those areas you'd like to take a deep dive in? We'd really love to hear from you. And for any other information, head to bluehub.co.uk, and then you can find out more about the work we do with our clients. Thank you very much for your time. Take care.